Welcome back, fellow witchers. This is Demon Phoenix with another build video, and this one is an interesting one. So I started out trying to make a crossbow cat eyes build with bombs. I figured it's all about range damage, so we'll kill things with the crossbow and kill things with bombs. And what I found was that although bombs are extremely powerful, the crossbow still wasn't killing things very quickly, even with a ton of skills put into the crossbow and having cat eyes. And I was running out of slots for these skills because you need a lot of them to maximise bombs properly. You need a lot of the bomb skills, a lot of the crossbow skills. It just wasn't really working. It was taking ages to kill things. But what I did notice when I was testing was the utility of the crossbow, the things that cat eyes boosts apart from the damage, is extremely good. And so I started messing around with that. I was like, right, so how can we start using the crossbow as utility? Is there something there? And I started playing around with this build, and honestly, it is really fun and surprisingly strong. I was like, there's not really a viable cat eyes build, it's more of a theme thing, but I'm telling you, this build is cool. So I'm glad to bring it to you. Now you can see we've got this Viruliden blade, which we've not used on a build before. Very good for this build. It gives an instant kill chance, and it's just a cool sword. Look at it with its little elation enchantment. It's absolutely beautiful. So this has a chance for critical hit, good critical hit damage, also 15% chance of bleeding and poison, and a 3% instant kill chance. And then we've also got Arendite as the silver sword. You could use a load of others here. Geschäft, Army, the usual suspects. We've got elation on both of those swords. Now we've got the legendary Forgotten Wolven armor, or the Grandmaster Wolven armor if you're in a regular playthrough. You could very easily go through with the Griffin armor as well. And we've got Eruption as the chest piece. You could actually use any of the mediums. You could use the Wolven or the Viper set if you wanted as well. For the chest piece. So the resistances aren't amazing to the human types of damage, but really good resistance from monsters there, and 95% elemental damage, so you're going to be taking very little from wraiths and elementals, bargeists, things like that. Now even though it's a crossbow build, you can get by with just having the level 29 crossbows, although you can make a level 60 crossbow now at least, and it's a bit funny, the mechanics, but if you go to the Grandmaster armor you can at least make a level 61. And even though the crossbow damage is decent, as you can see there, I'm using the Ursine crossbow instead of the feline, trade off a tiny bit of attack power for more adrenaline gain. And adrenaline's a big part of this build, as it is with many of my builds. Adrenaline's really important, I feel, post-patch. Does a load of cool stuff. So we've got the Griffin gauntlets, Griffin trousers, and Griffin boots, so that we've got the three-piece set. After using Summoner to cast a sign, you can immediately cast another regular sign, and that's extremely useful for this build. They're dyed grey to match the Forgotten Wolven armor. The Forgotten Wolven armor gives extra adrenaline and attack power, which attack power also boosts your crossbow damage, which is still nice even though it's not the main focus of the build, and that's why we've got the attack power greater mutagens here. So if you look at cat eyes, the damage is increased. Yes, that's a significant damage boost, but still takes ages to kill things. But the crossbow critical hit chance is increased by 50%. The bolts pierce and knock down or stun opponents, and they lose 15% if at full vitality, and that is really great, and it's the utility that we're using. So we've got deadly precision and crippling strikes, and crossbow bolts can apply deadly precision, so it can insta kill things, as I'll show later. And then we've got a lot of the things down the side there. We've got Razor Focus, Resolve, and Undying, so the adrenaline's very useful for this. We've got Arrow Deflection. If you want, you could put that on, and you'll see the slot that you can use that later. Lightning Reflexes, really load of slowdown there. Cold Blood is quite useful. It adds a lot of adrenaline points when you hit things, especially with certain types of bolts. Now, Anatomical Knowledge is a crossbow skill that increases crossbow critical hit chance by 60%. And then we've got Crippling Shot. So these work together. Critical hits dealt with the crossbow disable monster special abilities for 30 seconds, and that's actually really good, and this is the utility that I'm talking about. So with cat eyes, given the 50% critical hit boost and the anatomical knowledge skill, you always get a crit, so you're always suppressing monsters' abilities. It is cool. So we've got supercharged glyphs. I've actually got the Erdene Intensity, but I think really you can go with Pyromaniac, which you don't normally use. I'll come back to why in a minute, but yeah, those are your sign skills. And then we've got Synergy and Delayed Recovery. Delayed Recovery, as I'm always going on about, is an extremely powerful skill. Now here we've got Cat School Technique slotted initially for the 100% critical hit damage if you were to put Levity on, but I really don't feel like that's worth it, so I went with Eruption, and we're going to change that skill out as you see here. So what you could go with is you could put a bomb skill on, you could have tissue transmutation if you're using decoctions, or you could have endure pain, or you could put that arrow deflection skill there, so that because you don't have deflection on the chest piece as your enchantment, you could put that skill there instead, and that would further boost a red mutagen. So we just swap that there. Now you've got Trick Shot, which lets you shoot one additional bolt before you reload. That's absolutely crucial and very useful. And then we get Crossbow bolts deal 25% more damage with Steady Shot. So that's really cool, and what we're using with this build is the utility of the crossbow as well as the damage. So the damage is useful, and you can see there it's doing like 900 a hit, which considering you're hitting from range is occasionally quite useful. You can chip enemies down, but instead of focusing on purely having the damage from Cat Eyes and the crossbow, the utility is actually what makes it really good. So we're using the crossbow as support. Now, as I was mentioning about having Pyromaniac, which guarantees burning, you can either use that, or if you're not using that skill and you're using the Ardent Intensity, you have to make sure that you're using Superior Petri's Filter all the time, because either one of those will guarantee burning. So Superior Petri Filter, its special effect as the superior potion is that it will always inflict the special effects of a sign. So like Ard should always knock down, Igni will always burn, and your sign intensity isn't very high with this build because we're not going full in on that. And the burning's actually quite good for your crowd control and damage. So you want to make sure that we have either Pyromaniac, or that you're always using Superior Petri's Filter, and that it's always active with Delayed Recovery. Usual suspects for Delayed Recovery, we're going with Superior Swallow, which is our only method of healing, unless you want to change it up and try Fast Metabolism and have the Ekimara decoction, and then use potions on top with Fast Metabolism instead of Delayed Recovery. But you'll see here that you take a lot of damage with this build, and so I really like having Swallow, Superior Swallow always active, and Superior Blizzard for the slowdown, which, as anybody who's seen my builds post-patch knows, that's an incredibly powerful thing, probably the most powerful thing in the game. So you see there, because this was Death March, took an absolute ton of damage, but Undying saved me, so I got my adrenaline back there. Look at how quickly you can build the adrenaline back with exploding bolts if you really need them. Wham! Straight back up to the maximum adrenaline points. It knocks down, it does crowd control. So you can use your normal bolts most of the time, and that's what we're using for this build, but there are things like the bolts that inflict bleeding, they're quite useful, and you've got exploding bolts that you can make to use in a pinch. So you can fight tons of different enemies with this, and the crossbow, like I say, the utility is extremely good. Your sword damage is really good. You see that that went down very quickly there, the centipede, but this is a quick demonstration of why you really need to inflict that burning. So I don't have Superior Petri Filter active at the minute, despite having Delayed Recovery, and you see that that doesn't burn the centipede, so it's taking damage from Erden, but it doesn't get burnt, it doesn't stop from the burning. So you need to make sure that if you're not using Pyromaniac in the build, in that slot over the Erden Sign Intensity, you really need to make sure that you are having Superior Petri Filter active with your Delayed Recovery all the time. So here's how you can fight enemies one-on-one, and this is what I mean about discovering that the utility of the crossbow with Cat Eyes is really powerful. If it doesn't knock down an enemy, it stuns them. So you're fighting a one-on-one enemy here, you can keep Quen up because you can double cast signs, because we've got the 3 pieces of Griffin gear in the trousers, the boots and the gauntlets. Here I'm actually using the chest piece with the Griffin instead, so I could use the Nilfgaardian's Guardsman gauntlets, but I actually prefer it a little bit with the Forgotten Wolven. But you can see that you just stun and then hit and then stun and then hit. It's even better against regular bipedal enemies, because anything that can be knocked down will normally get knocked down by the bolts instead of getting stunned. So you can like knock things over like that. You saw that I was burning the Foglet there, and because it's the knockdown effect, bam, instant kill. Really cool. You've got a massive amount of slowdown when you manually aim, because we've got Superior Blizzard active with Delayed Recovery ideally, and then when you manually aim you get the Lightning Reflexes slowdown as well. So there, just quick reload, shoot, instant kill. It's really strong, and this is on like level 100 enemies. You could have this build really early, as soon as you could get Cat Eyes, because again with the rebalance you can get further down in the trees a lot later. So again, this is the kind of thing you can do against solo enemies. You can inflict your bleeding because we've got Crippling Strikes. You've got the Viruladen Blade, which can also, against Steel Sword enemies, inflict an instant kill more often. You are building up your adrenaline really quickly, so you've got Deadly Precision, and in the time that I'm talking, this thing's already been murdered, and if you want, you can just finish them off with like rapid fire in the crossbow, especially against single enemies, because if they don't get knocked down, they get stunned. It's really good, and I was really enjoying it. Now that suppressing monster abilities is really cool, because when you have that skill, you're always inflicting a critical hit. Because of the combination of skills we've got, you can instant kill enemies like that. You see, that was instant death. Arachnomorph just goes down. And when you're hitting annoying enemies like the Arachnomorphs and things that have really powerful monster abilities, it'll suppress things like the healing from a werewolf, and the stun will let you get close to these enemies that are normally quite annoying, like Archospores and Arachnomorphs. You can set them burning, because again, you're either having your burning chance from Superior Petri, which you can see is active there, or you will have the Pyromaniac skill if you want that slightly easier to manage version. You can get close to something, you can repeatedly stun lock them with shots from the crossbow, you inflict bleeding with crippling strikes, you do damage with Erden, and Erden slows them down as well, and you've got it all slowed down by having Superior Blizzard active with that very powerful combination of delayed recovery with the Superior Blizzard. You can see there I just did the quick shot, so a lot of the time you're not even having to aim at enemies, you can just quick shot. They explode with eruption like that, which makes the crowd control aspect of it very useful. That's why eruption's really cool. The enemies explode when they're inflicted with burning from Igni. And then even when you've got like the normal sort of crowds of enemies, you can see same sort of thing there. If they're grouped, they can get knocked down, so knock 3 of those enemies down. The first guy got killed by the instant kill chance from almost immediately having that adrenaline gain. And then you can just burn things. This is a bludgeoning enemy. We have very little bludgeoning resistance. Doesn't matter, because he's slowed down by Erden. He gets instantly killed after we knock him down. That guy explodes on the left, this dude gets decapitated. It's such a fun build, I'm serious, like, it is well worth trying out. So as I was saying, for the Steel Sword, if you look on this northwestern part of the map, the corner of the map in Tucson, this is part of the Hunt bases, and one of the Hunt bases is this underground cave area, which you just saw there, and Loth Halfbreed is the leader or the boss. So this is where you get the diagram for the Viruladen Blade. And it's really cool. So when you're fighting shielded enemies, this is another thing, they can block the crossbow bolts. The hit detection's a bit weird, so you would think you'd be able to shoot them in the leg, but it doesn't really work like that. But you can just parry, or you can knock them back with Ard, you can hypnotize them with Axii, and then as soon as you get the damage going, again, they can't do anything about it. You just get, like, you burn them, hit them with the crossbow, and it stuns them, and then you can apply the burn again. So this chest here, you'll see, is where you can get a few things at the end of the hand space when you've killed Loth, and there is the Viruladen Blade diagram, along with a couple others, so that's where you get the Steel Sword. So yeah, I was playing with this and I wanted to test it against a couple of other enemies. Typically things can be quite annoying with the crossbow, you know, even with Cat Eyes previously, it didn't really help against enemies like wraiths and things, but again, you can suppress most of their abilities, so still finding that after shooting that wraith it could still disappear, which I was a bit surprised about, but it still stuns the thing, and so you can just get in a few good hits there. It still does a fair amount of damage, easily lets you keep Quen and Erden up, because you've got the 3 pieces of Griffin gear, so you can double cast signs. If you cast normal Quen then normal Erden, that's a really good way of crowd control. You get the damage from the supercharged glyphs, and as you can see, it just slows them down, and the crossbow will do a chunk of damage. Erden can finish them off, and you can also get the instant death chance as well. You're about to see fought another wraith, and they are susceptible to the instant death chance, so this one gets hit, dies almost immediately without me even barely doing anything. I think I actually punched him and he died from the instant death chance, which is crazy, but there you have it. That's Deadly Precision. So all in all, I was messing about with it, and like I say, I was going to make a full build of crossbow damage and bomb damage, but bombs much more effective by themselves, and this was just a really fun build. So when I was playing it and testing it, I was thinking I might do a playthrough of this, because you don't even need these special damage arrow types, even though you can use the exploding bolts, the bleeding bolts, things like that. Just the regular bolts are absolutely fine. You get a massive amount of slowdown if you want to manually fire, and most of the time you can just you know, shoot 2 enemies per reload with that trick shot. And as you can see here, you can focus on the archers and everything else when you're fighting in big groups. And so yeah, did you ever think you'd see a Cat Eyes group, a Cat Eyes build that you can go and mix it up with a group of guards in the Nilfgaard camp? I didn't, but I had a ton of fun. So if you like this video, please like, comment and subscribe. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Hopefully you got some ideas and enjoy it as well. And I'll see you all next time on the path.